Happy Memorial Day weekend, and welcome to another episode of The Neutral Site. I'm your host, Ethan H.P. Robertson, with my co-host. We'll start with Jared this time, because Landon didn't have it together last time.
Hey guys, how's everybody doing this weekend?
I don't know, they can't hear you, Jared, so...
They can't reply.
They can't reply yet, buddy. Griffin.
I'm doing good.
Landon.
Apparently, I need to bring energy or something. I don't
Bring
know.
some energy.
Well, hey, we have a special guest with us this episode. And Christian, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Christian Dudley. I actually cover the Memphis Grizzlies for Fanside. It's BealeStreetBears.com. They are also owned by Time Incorporated. Give some background on Fansided there. I also do some coverage for Louisville Sports Live. That's attached to 93.9 ESPN Radio Louisville in Louisville, Kentucky. And one thing I do cover for them are former Louisville Cardinals in the NBA. So anything from NBA draft related stuff to Donovan Mitchell killing it in the dunk contest to the NBA playoffs. I cover some of everything as far as former Hoopers that used to go to U of L.
You know, when you said Donovan Mitchell, HP's face lit up with joy. It's the first time we've seen
absolutely.
it.
100%. Well, usually I've got you, and you. All three of you beating me down every time I want to talk about U of L. It's usually some of the scandal, 2013, Katina Powell, whatever. So I'm glad I got somebody else on my side this show.
Well, Christian, thank you for joining us. It really means a lot to us.
Absolutely. Thank
No
you.
problem. Anytime.
All right, well, I think we're going to go ahead and get right into it so far. Which team do you all want to start with?
Got to start with the Grizzlies.
We got to start with the Grizzlies.
Got to start with the Grizzlies.
I don't think we have much option here to start with the Grizzlies, so we're going to be continuing our off-season series. Well, not really off-season series. It's actually the off-season around here for sports, but our series covering each NBA team, what our plan is this off-season, what we think they need to do to either get back into contention or go ahead and build for the future. So I'll go ahead and let Landon start off with what we think the Grizzlies need to do this offseason to be more successful in the future.
All right, this armchair quarterback has a lot of solutions personally, but we'll see. So obviously Memphis is currently $5 million over in cap space. They do have a trade exception from the Troy Daniels trade with Phoenix. Personally, I don't know how much of a possible solution this is, but I think the biggest thing they need to do is try and shell out that Chandler Parsons contract. The durability questions have lingered. We're not sure, or a lot of people aren't sure if he can play more than 50 games in a season, and obviously he may not be worth the money. But Christian, I do have a question. Obviously, with two veteran leaders in Marcus Sol and Mike Conley, what's the direction of this team right now? Are they in a win-now mode, or is it rebuild? Because there seems to be a big question mark in that sense.
This was actually discussed by GM Chris Wallace here recently, past couple weeks, whenever they introduced the head coach, J.B. Bickerstaff. Of course, he was in an interim role, and that press conference was to introduce him as the official full-time head coach. Right now, the franchise direction is to win now, still with Gasol and Conley. Of course, Mike Conley only played 12 games last year, though Gasol, he still produced a full season. As far as the front office, they think that with a healthy Conley and Gasol still out there, they can be one of the best teams in the West. And I think they could have done some damage this year, especially with the way that Tyreek Evans, he was a newcomer in this past season. I think with him, with the healthy Conley and Gasol, they could have really done some damage, though. Even though Chandler Parsons, he hasn't nearly lived up to that max contract that he's got going on. But mix some of these young guys in there, like Dylan Brooks, who did get snubbed from the all-rookie teams.
Oh, absolutely. I kind of felt like that was going to come up at some point.
Well, I would have let him do it just to get some more talk about Donovan.
I'm still a little bit upset about that. But I think they have quite a few pieces now to where they could really cause some damage in the West. Kind of like what the Utah Jazz did. That was kind of like the Memphis Grizzlies of 2018 in my mind. Just a team out of nowhere that they did make a big leap there towards the end of the regular season, got into one of those final playoff positions and really made themselves known around the league. So maybe next season that'll be the Memphis Grizzlies. But right now, that is the franchise direction. And if they do miss the playoffs a year from now, then maybe it'll be time to blow it up, but that's not going to be the case this summer.
Well, Christian, we were talking about Chandler Parsons there a second ago. I saw you put out a piece the other day about how Luka Doncic may possibly fall to the Grizzlies. And I'm wondering if Luka would be able to fill that sort of Chandler Parsons role like how they wanted him. to, be that wing scorer, sort of a secondary, tertiary ball handler somewhere in there?
Right. It's funny you mentioned that because David Fisdale, who is the former Grizzlies coach, his initial plan for Chandler Parsons when he helped recruit him to the Grizzlies was to make him like a point forward, so that way it would relieve Mike Conley some of his ball handling duties, because actually Conley plays really well off the ball and can play some two-guard minutes if possible. So I think that if they would potentially draft Luka Doncic, that could kind of evolve that plan that Fisdale initially had. And of course, J.B. Bickerstaff was one of Fisdale's assistants the entire time there in Memphis. Right. And him stepping into that head coaching role, I'm curious as to see if, maybe he will pick back up on that thought. Of course, Chandler Parsons would have to be healthy for some of that to take place too. But if he's not, and they do take Doncic, they could make Doncic like the full-time point guard, make Mike Conley play some two-guard minutes, and really have a dynamic backcourt. I'm not fully sold on Doncic, though, but, maybe he will prove me wrong. Maybe he will turn out to be an NBA All-Star. But I think he might just be a little bit too slow laterally to play defense. But if he does turn out to be like a Ricky Rubio-type player, I'd still be happy because as far as Grizzlies draft picks go, if we get any type of value, that's better than a lot of our past draft picks.
I don't think we need to rehash like Hasheem Thabeet or anything like that.
Yeah, we need another regime.
Well, I think was just talking about the Grizzlies offseason overall, I think there's been a lot of agreement amongst us four at least that Tyreke Evans and what happens with him is going to be a key piece for, I guess, he could be a key piece for a lot of teams going forward. So what's the sense amongst the Grizzlies organization about Tyreke? Are they going to really push to bring him back, or do you think they're just going to be outbid by another team? Since he's coming off 19 points a game and really a heck of a season for him.
Well, they've really actually tried to get him back already, like even last season, trying to make a push. Even though it's funny that I say that because around the trade deadline, they actually sent him away from the team. It was actually a game against the Indiana Pacers. He showed up, took part, he participated in the morning shoot-around for the Grizzlies against the Pacers. And by the time game time rolled around, they sent him away from the team, put him on a flight back to Memphis, and told him, hey, in the next week we're going to find a trade for you so that way you can join a contender. So that way you're not just on this tanking, drowning ship in Memphis. But even though he never did get that trade, they kept him. There was a sense in the front office that, hey, Tyreke, we do want you back. But the thing is that he played so well, and he really played on a steal of a contract this past season. It was a one-year deal for a little bit over $3 million. And the output that he had for that money, it was unmatched. Probably the best free agent signing of all last summer. So I'm not really sure if the Grizzlies could afford to bring him back. They do have the mid-level exception to hand him. I'm not sure if that'll be enough, especially nowadays with some of these lucrative contracts that free agents get. Especially after having a few big months at the end of the season or maybe a good playoff series. Some teams just really start throwing money out once they see those numbers from guys.
So, Christian, you talk about bringing Tyreke Evans back. Obviously, that's going to take quite a deal to bring him back. You have Conley and Gasol there. You say that the Grizzlies want to continue to try to win now. If that's the case, could you see them potentially shopping that around that fourth pick? An example that comes to my mind is the Clippers have shown interest in Michael Porter, so possibly they could try to trade up to that fourth spot. Could you see? I guess my main question is, could you see the Grizzlies trading that pick to get more players that can produce right now?
Yeah, there has been some talk by Chris Wallace. Again, that's the Grizzlies general manager. He has said that he might look into trading back. But after he's seen Luka Doncic, especially in those EuroLeague finals and how well he's been playing, he has had some quotes. Even 2 days ago after a pre-draft workout there at FedEx Forum, he was talking about how impressive he is, and he's the best European player that he's ever seen. So the more that he talks him up, the more I'm thinking that, if he's on the board, Doncic is going to wind up in Memphis. I know there is mutual interest there because Doncic has specifically said he would love to play with Mike Conley and also Marc Gasol. Of course, Gasol being very popular on the international circuit here in the hoops world. So I think there is some strong mutual interest there. And if by chance Phoenix would happen to pass on Doncic, I think he would fall to 4th, and I don't see him falling past that.
Wow, okay.
That's interesting there. With regards to those teams that are drafting right after Phoenix, why and why do they prefer these other players to Doncic? Just because Doncic has gotten so much hype.
It's got to be the European, the whole stereotype with European players not paying.
I know there's been rumors how you might not come over next year immediately, but I'm interested to hear. I'm interested to hear this though.
Yeah, it's funny because I've seen those rumors, and attached to it was that quote by him that he is really intrigued by playing with Gasol and Conley. So I don't know if he's just trying to use that as leverage, because I don't think he's seriously thinking about spending one more season overseas. I think regardless he will come over to the NBA. But for whatever reason, I know it's very rare to see a player want to play for a small market like Memphis. But I guess that he just really thinks something could click with Conley, Gasol, and himself down there. So we'll see about that. But as far as the number 1 pick goes, I know some people think DeAndre Ayton is just the guaranteed number 1 overall pick. However, if you look at the coach that they hired, Igor Kokoskov, he actually coached Luka Doncic overseas before a couple years ago. So I don't know if that's like the Suns' sneaky way of trying to, try to persuade Doncic to want to play in Phoenix even after their terrible season this past year. Or what the case may be. But I just have a hard time believing that you hire that type of head coach and just completely pass on Doncic to hire Ayton, who is also a completely different position than Doncic.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think it's often been overlooked in the process. But I think this is going to be our last question before we move on to the Pelicans. Memphis unfortunately had one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the league this year. Could you see them going out for a low-cost guy like Seth Curry in free agency, or even Marco Bellinelli, just somebody that can provide some sort of shooting for that team?
Bellinelli's actually a player I've really wanted to have on the Grizzlies roster before, because he does provide some playmaking in addition to three-point shooting. It's not like he's just out there chucking away. You saw the benefit that he had for Philadelphia here in the playoffs. He was stellar. But three-point shooting is one thing that Memphis has always struggled with. I mean, it wasn't just last year. This has went on for the past decade.
Right.
Really, that's the one component that would push them over the top a lot of these years. They're known for grit and grind. It's all about defense and turning that into offense. But really, Memphis wants to grind you down, pound you in the paint, but they're always lacking on the perimeter. Now, if Parsons, if he would actually be healthy, we would have one heck of a three-point shooter. Tyreek Evans, he actually did step up this season, really boosted his three-point percentage. I would like to see maybe Seth Curry out there. That would be a good option out there for three-point shooting. But it is something that does need to be addressed. You mentioned Troy Daniels earlier, and actually that was one heck of a flamethrower that we had, and the front office just happened to trade him off for a couple cheap draft picks, and that was that. Just trying to shed salary wherever they could. But it would be nice to have a Troy Daniels-type player today.
Right. Yep. So before we move on, gentlemen, who's the guy we think Memphis should pick? Griffin, we'll start with you.
Well, I think they should absolutely take Doncic if he falls to him because he would fit in perfectly. But I don't think he falls that far, so I think they got to go with the next best wing, and that's Michael Porter.
Absolutely. Jared?
You know, if Doncic falls, like Griffin said, I think they should absolutely take him. He's the wing that they really, really need. But if he's still there, I really think they should take Jaren Jackson because we've seen the track record with, bigs as they get past 30, they start to have a lot of lower body issues, and Gasol's had some injuries in the past. So Jaren Jackson, who can also stretch the floor and has a lot of defensive upside, right. I think he'd be a great pick for
HP?
I want to defer to Christian on this one. We'll go to you next, though. I'm interested to see what you want to say, though.
You're taking a cop-out on this one.
After, the first two picks, anything could happen. I have no idea what these teams are thinking after the first two picks.
Personally, I'm in the same camp as Jared and Griff. I'm not entirely sold on Doncic for a number of reasons. I'm one of the people that's very wary about European players coming over, not just because of talent, but there just seems to be something lost in translation there. We look at guys like Mario Hezonja. But for me, I think you take Michael Porter Jr. too. James Ennis might be leaving in free agency, and frankly, if they do bring back Evans, I think Michael Porter Jr. is a great guy. You can put out the wing out there, but he can also play the 2. So that's just my personal preference. But Christian, definitive choice here. Who are you going with?
Well, I'm actually really hoping Marvin Bagley from Duke happens to slide down to number 4.
Okay.
And I think that could be possible only if Luka Doncic goes number 1, followed by DeAndre Ayton number 2, and then I've got to find a way to persuade Atlanta to take Jaren Jackson. Then if that happens, because I know Atlanta likes Jackson, they also like Bagley. But I think at number 4, if Bagley's available, that's definitely the Grizzlies guy.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. I think those are the 2 that I'd have a hard time slotting because there's been a lot of smoke around Jaren Jackson with Atlanta. I'm gonna send Jackson to Atlanta to Memphis in my mock at least.
Right.
I know everybody's dying to hear what I have to say. So
Oh, absolutely. Why do you think people tune in?
exactly. No, it's for Jared's entertainment value. That's what we're here. So.
All right.
So I think we can go ahead and move along a little bit. We can head to the Pelicans next. And this is a team that has had a lot of storylines about their offseason because they have a genuine superstar in DeMarcus Cousins, who he's a free agent this year. And we have no idea if the Pelicans are going to be even willing to offer him the max to get him back. So what do y'all think is the plan so far for the Pelicans to get better in the offseason? I have no idea because they were almost better without Cousins this year.
They were, but he's just such a good – he's a superstar, and it can't hurt to have Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins on the same team. We're still yet to see them play an entire season together, and I really don't see how it goes wrong. In the limited time that they've played together, it's worked.
Well, and HP said that they were better without Cousins. I disagree with that. They were actually on the upswing right before Cousins got hurt. I believe they'd won like 6 out of their last 9 or something like that. And then he got hurt and they went on that big run.
Right.
So I think they were finally starting to figure things out. And I think you have to retain Cousins. You cannot lose a legitimate superstar like that.
Right.
The advanced stats say that when Boogie's off the floor, Anthony Davis is more productive and vice versa. However, it's been overlooked that their net plus rating when they're both on the floor is a positive 4.2. So it's not like when they're both on the floor they're losing or they're providing negative point differentials. I think they got to bring it back just for the sake of bringing AD back. AD's available for the biggest contract in NBA history, and you really need to sell him on why he should sign it because he can get a huge contract anywhere. But you need to sell him on why New Orleans can be a championship contender. And when you have DeMarcus Cousins, who, yes, he's coming off a very big injury that's limited many players, but he's just such a generational talent that I have a hard time believing they won't try to bring him back, and I think they should personally.
Christian, do you have what's the sense around the league with Cousins? Do they think that the Pelicans are going to pony up the money they're going to need to get him back, or do they think he's going to walk?
I think the Pelicans will really try to get him back, but I don't know if he'd be interested. I think he might actually look towards some of these bigger markets, bigger cities, maybe even something like the Lakers.
Jesus.
I've actually seen a couple crazy opinions out there of where he's going to go, and of course I see all these Photoshop pictures of Cousins in a Lakers uniform.
Right.
Meanwhile, right next to him are Photoshop pictures of Paul George and Westbrook and everybody else. I guess that's life as a Lakers fan.
Well,
Jared, you have a rebuttal for that?
Being a Grizzlies fan, I'm not too fond of the Lakers, so sorry if anybody is a Lakers fan.
That would be Jared.
That would be Jared.
Oh, man. No.
But I think for the Pelicans, that they are one of the smaller markets out there, I guess. Whenever you got a superstar player like that you can potentially get, that front office needs to go after the player because otherwise it's really hard to draw these guys there. Especially the Pelicans, they haven't really had a whole lot of playoff success, although this year they did make some noise. And a lot of that is because of Anthony Davis. I would have liked to see, from a Pelicans perspective, how well they could play for a full season and also in the playoffs with AD and Cousins together. Because who knows, maybe they would have made a trip to the Western Conference Finals. Like you all mentioned, Cousins was really killing it right as he was getting hurt. And, of course, he missed the rest of the season when that happened. But he was posting some ridiculous stat lines at the time. I forget some of his numbers, but I remember it was outrageous, and it was looking like Cousins was the MVP of the league at the time. I was shocked, and there's always been some bad blood between Memphis fans and Cousins because he's always getting into it with either players or people sitting courtside. But I do have some respect for Boogie because he really just kept on playing as hard as he could there in Sacramento, even having a dysfunctional front office, not always having the best roster. And it was a shame to see yet another superstar go down like that. And I would like to see him have another chance with the Pelicans, especially with Anthony Davis also playing out of his mind.
Right. One of the big issues, they have no cap room. They only have, I believe, 7 guys on contract right now. And they have, it's going to be interesting to see.
They don't have a first-round pick.
They don't have, no.
Drew Holiday is just as like a albatross on that team.
No, they have nobody. They got to bring back Rondo, Ian Clark. They got Mirotic.
Mirotic is a $13 million team option.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing. Obviously, this is a deep draft, but they have what, like 42nd pick? They have a mid to late second round pick that they could maybe take a sharpshooter like Malik Newman. 50, so maybe they could get a guy like Malik Newman or somebody like that. But really, this is just going to be a major issue of, is it going to be a personnel change, or do they really have the confidence going forward? So this is one of the more intriguing cases.
If they have Anthony Davis and Boogie, those two are more than good enough to carry them throughout. I don't know how far, but that's yet to be seen. But Davis proved he can carry them pretty far by himself.
I'm hoping they don't disband the UK group.
Oh,
they got Darius Miller, Liggins, Rondo,
they've got the good ones. It's not like the graveyards out in Phoenix and Sacramento. So
you know your career's done if you're going to Phoenix.
They have Jordan Crawford. He played for IU for like 10 games.
Oh boy,
he did. He did.
See what he got? Did he end up at X?
Yeah.
We're trying to get that arbitrary Chris Mack reference in there.
Everything always gets tied back to Chris Mack somehow.
And there's a good reason for that. So
old bandit.
No, I really think that the roster they have right now with Drew Holiday, Anthony Davis, and DeMarcus Cousins could make some noise in the playoffs. You just got to find the right role players to put around that. Darius Miller. I really think you just need to find shooters. So Darius Miller, Ian Clark, Etuan Moore.
They need a wing. That's what's been killing them the last few years. A lot of people have thought maybe they could make a trade push if they don't feel confident with Cousins for Otto Porter Jr. I've heard that one, just because he's a great three-point shooter.
That contract's pretty rough.
No,
I don't know about that.
I don't know.
He's good.
I don't think they should. It's just a personnel fit. But we'll see. So you guys want to move on to the Pistons?
Yeah, let's move on to the Pistons.
I got to shout out my friend Jordan Luth. He's a big Pistons fan. He's, dude, your team's screwed. You're in awful shape. So basically, here's what I got down for notes on the Detroit Pistons. Right now, they're paying $120 million in salary cap. I believe that is that's right at the luxury tax line.
Paying John Lure $11 million.
They're on the hook
that sink in.
They're on the hook for $117 million next year, and they got the 9 seed, and they don't have a first round pick this year. Like, what do you do, honestly, Landon? We're going to you. What do you do?
I think the first step, obviously, is hire Dwayne Casey. I think that's a big one, and I just think you need to do it. Obviously, the Van Gundy era didn't work out, unfortunately, but I think Dwayne Casey's proven. I think he brings a hard-nosed mentality that Detroit has needed and hasn't had since the group of Chauncey Billups, Richard Hamilton, and Ben Wallace broke up about 10 years ago. But I don't know. They got to try and move Reggie Jackson, in my opinion. Is that going to happen? You all have told me I'm crazy. I don't think it's going to happen.
It would happen. They would get peanuts for him. But
well, Ish Smith is cheaper, but he's more durable, and honestly, he's producing lower numbers, but he still was good.
I think we can all agree on that. I almost think the Pistons should tank, honestly. But at the same time, you almost don't want to tank because of the fact that if you're tanking, you're just giving away Blake Griffin.
Yeah.
And then you're probably just giving away Drummond too, if we're being honest, because we're talking about one guy, Drummond, who's a relic of the past NBA, who really doesn't fit nearly as well in today's modern NBA game as he would have even 5-6 years ago, and Blake Griffin, who they're paying $38 million in 4 years. So God help the Pistons.
Now, Christian, not trying to pour salt in the wound here, but obviously Detroit just hired Memphis Grizzlies executive Ed Stefanski. Do you think that under his new direction they'd be willing to tank, or do you believe that they're in a win now mode after just acquiring Blake Griffin?
I think they're still in the win now mode, mostly because of Andre Drummond. They definitely don't want to trade him right now. His contract won't be up until probably 2020. That's when I believe it's a team option on that. And it could be as long as 2021 until they could actually get out of that contract. And he's already making over $23 million this season, and it's going to be over $25 million in the next season. So I don't know why you would tank. You're paying a player that much for that many years. Plus, you just acquired Blake Griffin, and he's up there too, over $20 million per season. And I think his contract's still 5 or 6 seasons out. So that's a lot of money. 2 big name players. I don't think I don't think there's any signs of needing to tank right now. Detroit did have some pretty impressive wins last year. They just unfortunately couldn't get things together, either dysfunctional front office, injuries, etc. But I think they're heading in the right direction, especially like you all said, if Dwayne Casey is brought on, that's definitely the top coach on the market in my mind. But better front office now, bring in Dwayne Casey, try to get these guys playing in the right direction, especially living up to the potential that they have. Their bench was actually phenomenal last year. They didn't get enough credit for that. Like guys like Reggie Bullock, who had been sitting the bench, third string or worse, over the last several seasons, coming in and scoring anywhere from 15 to 20 points a game almost every night after the All-Star break this season. Even guys like Anthony Tolliver, who's a good friend of mine, he ended the season with, I believe, 2 or 3 25-point games in the last couple weeks of the season against some decent teams. A lot of these guys, even Luke Kennard, who was a rookie, he came in and impressed and showed he can play in the league and does belong in the league. Some of these guys, even though they're real players, they just didn't get enough credit. And just because they were the 9th seed this season, I think that's where a lot of these guys lost some recognition.
Well, I think that the Pistons are still an interesting case because they have 3 young guys who really haven't gotten any run in the NBA yet that Van Gundy never really paid any attention to. And Christian, like what you said, Luke Kennard, Stanley Johnson, and Henry Ellenson, who we still don't really know what they are. There was a lot of questions in that Detroit Pistons front office if Van Gundy ever really tried to develop them or if he was just more interested in getting acquired players or established players. And I know that some coaches have preferences with that, but I mean these are 3 talented players who we haven't really seen what they can do yet. Do you think that could propel them into the playoffs possibly next year under a new coach like Dwayne Casey?
I think so, and it really, if you look at Van Gundy and the success they had in Orlando, he didn't really develop anybody. Dwight Howard, even though he was, coming right out of high school, one of the biggest names there in 2004 when he was drafted, he did plateau pretty early, and ever since then he hasn't gotten any better. And I think that is a large knock on Van Gundy, and it just shows with young talent he just isn't too good at developing these young players. He can really make some veterans mesh, but as far as young guys and trying to rebuild a portion of the team, that's not in his resume. So that's why a guy like Dwayne Casey, that's perfect. He's been through several rebuilding phases with various teams, whether assistant coach or head coach. That's one of the things that's right up his alley, and I think he could really make Detroit into a threat in the Eastern Conference. Again, if they were the 9th seed in the East this year, especially with a weakened Eastern Conference, it wouldn't take all that much just to throw them into the playoffs. And of course, you all know, as soon as the playoffs tip off, anything could happen.
Right. I think Casey is really good at developing players. That's something we saw this past season, even on the Raptors, developing guys like OG Anunoby and Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam.
I had to bring OG in.
I saw the train coming down the tracks about a mile away on that one.
But not just him, also VanVleet and Siakam and Jakob Poeltl, guys like that.
Good point. Fair enough. We always have to bring some. I have to bring UK. HB has to make a Sir Donovan Mitchell reference. Jared.
The thing is, UK has enough NBA players that where it like makes sense.
Right.
We have to reach.
We have to cherish the ones we do have. So.
So let me tell you about this Oladipo guy.
No, I mean Pistons obviously needed. I think shooting guards a big thing. They should look at. I've seen they should look at a guy like Joe Harris. That would be a good one to address.
I don't
3-point
I
issue.
don't know if that's necessary because I mean Luke Kennard's still only 22, so I mean he still has time to develop. Stanley Johnson has developed as he's developing
Johnson's
as
an enigma.
He's developing
hard
as a
to figure
perimeter
out.
threat though.
Right, but
Really, if we're talking free agents, they're going to have to get somebody in that mid-level exception range because they got no cap space right
got
now.
nothing.
They're $10 million over the luxury, or it might even be $10 million over the luxury right now. And if I believe they renounce all their players' rights that are free agents, they're still $117 million for next year. So
that's going to be hard to get rid of Reggie Jackson, let alone John Lure. So that would be interesting.
I think they need to try. I think they need to try and see if they can mesh because I mean they brought in Blake Griffin. They brought in a new face of the franchise halfway through the year. That's hard to overcome and get into the playoffs with.
Right. Well, I think that's going to sum up the first part of our episode here. When we come back, we're going to be discussing the Clippers, Heat, and the Mavericks. So until then, stay tuned.
welcome back to the neutral side. We just got to finish discussing 3 NBA teams' off-season plans: the Memphis Grizzlies, the Detroit Pistons, and the New Orleans Pelicans. And after us pretty much just taking a dump all over the Pistons for about 10 minutes, because that's Christian swooping in and playing a little defense for him. We're going to be moving on to our next 3 teams, and I think we're going to go ahead and start with the Los Angeles Clippers next. Intriguing team because they have 2 first-round draft picks in the lottery. Not a ton of salary, though, still on the books. I've got them down for $117 million this year, $112 million we can assume, considering the feeling at least I've heard is that looks like DeAndre Jordan and Austin Rivers look pretty likely to opt into their deals. Mm-hmm. So what do you all think the Clippers need to do to make some improvements? They've just brought back Doc Rivers, so it's going to be interesting to see exactly what they're going to do this offseason. We'll go to Christian first just to see what he's got to say on the Clippers. What's the sense around the league they're going to do?
Yeah, I don't see Austin Rivers actually, opting out of that. That's a lot of cash for somebody that is kind of mediocre in my eyes. He'd be making just under $12 million or just under $13 million next season.
That's obscene for Austin Rivers.
For DeAndre Jordan, I don't see a reason why he would opt out of that. I know there was some different rumors floating around the league this past season about maybe trading him or something like that. And of course, you all probably remember the last time he was a free agent and really caused a huge stir with the Dallas Mavericks. And there was a lot of Twitter wars going on and all kinds of stuff.
People locking each other in each other's hotels.
I don't think he is quite ready to experience another free agency period yet. I think he's learned after that first one with fire. So, but as far as the Clippers goes, one player that really stood out was Montrezl Harrell, former Louisville Cardinal.
And HP lets out a fist
He will be a free agent, and so they're going to have to fill that role. However, he didn't play all that many minutes at power forward for them. Playing him with DeAndre Jordan's kind of meaningless, just because they both like to hang around the rim, get points off putbacks, rebound a lot, block shots. Neither one of them is by any means a stretch player. If anything, Trez probably stretches out a little bit more than DeAndre.
That's not saying a whole
saying
lot.
a whole lot.
That just makes me remember whenever
stretching out, that's like 5 feet maybe.
that just throws
It's like
me back.
it's Ben Simmons range.
That's floater range.
It just makes me remember like whenever Trez hit those 3 threes against Minnesota a couple years ago. People were like, "Oh my God, he can shoot now!" And then he went like 1 for 20 the next 10 games.
I remember,
and Rick told him stop shooting.
I remember when Louisville played Indiana that year, and Trez had a wide open 3 at the top of the key. I was like, "Oh no, HP said he could shoot now," and he hit the side of the backboard.
Now, I love Trez, though, on the Clippers. I think he was actually in the top 15 in the league for PER lane. Is that right?
Who saw that coming?
No one. I think a lot of it, for him being like an energy type player in the NBA, I think them kind of managing his minutes really helps him maximize his output on the floor. But yeah, he was a huge positive for them this season. Going back to what we were talking about earlier, $117 million in cap this year. Assuming everybody opts in, looks like they're on the hook for 112. What do you do to make improvements outside of those 2 first-round picks? I'll go to really anybody who wants to chime in. I'll let you all go first.
I'll take it. I mean, obviously, the big guy they got to get rid of is Danilo Gallinari. And it's not even so much from his own production. It has pretty much to stem with Sam Decker. Sam Decker is a tough player to talk about for me because he helped ruin arguably the greatest season in our team's history.
Thank God he did.
Thank you, Sam Decker. Love you.
So a tear comes to my eye every time I say his name. But he was a plus 57 on the floor this year in just limited playing time. So obviously he's proven he can be beyond efficient. And Danilo, as we can all agree, he's not worth the money. Obviously, I don't think he is. He can space the floor, but he's just too inconsistent. So
now, HP, does that the money that they have next year, does that include Patrick Beverley's team option?
I believe that I did not include Patrick Beverley's team option.
Okay, because so that opens up another $6 million, and
they're still over the cap though. Still way over the cap.
And they have the
Milos Teodosic.
Teodosic couldn't figure out how to pronounce his last name.
It's okay. You're not the only one.
Guy. Yeah.
Could they roll with him and just to free up a little bit more space, or do you think they should bring back Patrick Beverley?
That's a tough call, really, just because with the Clippers,
I really like Patrick Beverley.
With who I have them taking, I would lean toward no, just to get rid of the salary. But at the same time, I mean, Patrick Beverley for what, $6 million? You said?
Yeah,
that's a good deal.
Yeah.
I think that's a good deal, honestly. As far
Patrick Beverley was actually playing out of his mind before that injury.
Yeah.
And had he played the full season, I think Clippers would have slipped into the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, that's a with the kind of defense he's bringing your team. I mean, I think $6 million's more than worth it for him, 100%.
The Clippers probably wouldn't even made that trade that brought Avery Bradley to Los Angeles had Patrick Beverley not gone down.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Avery Bradley's the guy they got to let walk, though. So
you think that they had one of the worst defenses in the league, and Avery Bradley's renowned for his 3-and-D play?
I don't think they can pay him.
If they can pay him, I say bring him back.
He's at what? He's at I believe $8 million now this season. He's a free agent. I think he's gonna. In a league where Kent Bazemore, I was beating on Kent Bazemore last week. Kent Bazemore's making $16 million in the NBA. Avery Bradley's going to get good money this offseason from somebody.
You found time to bring it into our casual conversations onto the show. I'm proud of you. You're getting there.
I have to like make fun of some player from like that 2015, 16 offseason where everybody just went insane and was just throwing money to everybody. Landon, we're paying you $2 million.
What about Solomon Hill?
Landon will go to Sacramento.
Solomon Hill, didn't he get?
I get to go to Sacramento.
You're going to Sacramento at the UK graveyard. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, let me ask you all this though. So obviously they're bringing Austin Rivers might come back, so they do have a good amount of guards. With that 12th pick though, I actually have them taking Shai Alexander.
You're not alone on that one. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's a good pick there too.
Right. And I'll make it a trio, and I'm going to say Shai there as well.
Let's see if Griffin swallows his pride.
I have Colin Sexton, but also another point guard. So,
Christian, do you think they'd reach out for a point guard even though they've got Beverly and Milos, or do you think they move toward a front court option like Robert Williams?
I'm not really sure because the Clippers, they do like going after guards. Even now, they still like playing some small ball.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I was mentioning with Trez, they didn't play him too much with DeAndre Jordan just because they still like small ball. They can even play Tobias Harris, that's really a 3. They play him at the 4, so I could see them going after a guard. They're just set in stone with that small ball lineup. Just push the pace, increase the tempo. Of course, they extended Doc Rivers, their head coach, here in the past week. And so since they're keeping the same guy at the helm of the ship, I don't see them really changing their game plan either. So I think they'll keep playing small ball and take a guard.
Well, you mentioned Doc Rivers, and that's great because I actually wanted to go there. Doc Rivers has never really been part of a rebuilding process. I mean, we can see he forced his way out of Boston whenever it looked like they were going to have to rebuild.
Well, that's not entirely true. Back when he was the head coach in Orlando back in the late 90s, early 2000s, they were god-awful. But as if they were god-awful. I mean, he got fired from the job. But no, I know what you're saying. He's been fixated with success with the Celtics.
But with a healthy season from everyone, I mean, I don't think this Clippers roster is a championship contender, especially in the West. but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to see them maybe sneak in as the 7 or 8 seed again. But I almost believe it would be better for them to trade DeAndre Jordan, trade Austin Rivers, and sort of just try to tear it down, because
I don't think Ballmer will ever do that.
I think the reason you can't do that is that the Clippers have been so bad. I think the teams that are least receptive to tanking, in my eyes, are teams like the Clippers, because the Clippers sucked for like ever. The Clippers were
Very
awful
brief.
forever. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. The Clippers are a bad team for a long time, and when you've had that much successive failure, and for a little while there, they were Los Angeles' team for like 2 or 3 years, or whatever Lob City was. But I think that's the kind of team that's going to want to hold on to every possible little bit of good
Success.
of good fortune and success that comes their way.
You think Ballmer's mentality is to tank? No way. That guy has a very, very win now mentality. It's what made him successful. It's what he's going to drive.
Even though there's 2 tanking advocates on this show,
right.
I do not think they would tank by any possibility.
Yeah, I don't think Doc Rivers would. I don't think Doc Rivers, because he does have front office power, I don't think he'd allow them to tank either.
I thought he got his front office power revoked. Well, he has influence, but like the official title.
If Doc Rivers thought they were going to tank this year or soon, he would have left. He would have did what he did to Boston.
So who are we all going with that 12th pick? All three, HP, Jared,
I
took
Shai. I took Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
And you've got
I have Sexton. I think Sexton falls that far.
Interesting. I don't think Sexton. I think the Knicks would take him if they got him at 9.
Christian, what do you think, my man?
I think Shai goes there. I really follow Draft Express a lot. I've actually got a friend that does work for Draft Express, or not Draft Express, my apologies, NBA Draft.net.
Right.
And so I typically follow his lead. I'd kind of get some tips from him, things like that. And that's who he's got going to the Clippers with their first pick. They're at 12. Of course, they also have the 13th pick overall, too.
Right, and do you see them drafting Miles Bridges at that pick? Because that's personally who I think would be a great fit in that system.
Yeah, I do. I don't know if he'll last that long, though. I think as these pre-draft workouts increase, I think his stock might actually start to rise.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But if it's available, I do think that they will take it.
HP, are you going to jump on the bandwagon, the Miles Bridges bandwagon, or no?
That was my other guy at 13. I had Miles Bridges at 13, so...
Jared?
You know, this is unpopular with the guys
This
in the
is
room.
extremely unpopular. I know where you're going with this. Please don't.
You know, I have Michael Porter Jr. going with this.
He's not.
That's awful. That is awful. It's not happening.
There's no way he drops to 13, Jared.
Well, no, you know, he's just undergone major surgery. There's injury concerns. To me, he's still sort of an unproven commodity. We didn't really see a lot of him in college. I know that he had that he was going to be somewhere in the top 3 coming into this year, but going through major surgeries like that, I mean, it could really derail a guy's career, or it can at least push it back.
But you think he's going to drop 12 spots?
How much? Not one of those terrible teams in front of the Clippers won't take a chance on him.
Right.
No, I mean, I'm not saying that it won't happen, but I think that's
yeah, no offense.
I think that's the best spot for him, and I think that that's where it makes the most sense.
That makes little sense to us.
Wild
here at TNS,
card,
but that's okay.
I would have a wild card for one of those 2 picks. McCall Bridges. I think McCall Bridges can help.
Right.
I
don't think he drops that far, though.
I don't think he drops that far either, though. If he did, I think he'd be a candidate, because McCall Bridges can pretty much help any team, being like a 6'10" player that's a sharpshooter, and he can help any team. So
Griffin,
with the 13th pick.
With the 13th pick, who does the?
I think I haven't taken Kevin Knox, because I think Miles Bridges goes a little bit before they can get to him.
And HP groans because we mentioned a UK player.
And Shai
you had Kevin Knox in the top 10 like a week ago.
I had Kevin Knox going to New York, which
isn't
isn't terrible. I don't have Michael Porter Jr. dropping to 13. Oh my goodness.
All right, time to make Landon sad and talk about the Heat.
God, you want to hear the 3 words that describe the Heat? We are terrible. There you go.
Well, they were
trash.
They made the playoffs.
Oh,
in the
that's
East.
true.
They made the playoffs.
What happened? We
Got
flamed
a
out.
sweep.
Okay, look, this one isn't hard to explain here. We're screwed. Hassan wants out. D Wade may not
That's
play.
not a
another
bad
year.
thing that Hassan
Yeah,
wants
you.
out,
I would want.
You want to get rid of that salary.
Okay, who are we going to handle who are we going to hand the torch to? Are we going to hand it to Tyler Johnson?
You don't really have to hand it to anybody, though. I think this offseason needs to be more about just trimming the fat in terms of salary.
Well,
what do you want, HP?
Thank you.
What do you?
Guys, I don't know if you're aware of the number one reason why the Heat will have a huge, terrible season. But that is because they're going to be paying Chris Bosh $27 million next season.
You just had to bring that one up.
Not even in Florida.
I can't have a pissing contest for the guest though, so I can't be having that. So
Oh my god!
I was gonna say though, Miami Heat on the hook for $145 million
For
next
nine
year.
players, it's
That's,
$115 million.
that's horrendous.
And none of them are stars.
And even if
Except
they
for Chris Bosh, but that's just a freak thing.
I believe it. Even if they renounce the rights to every one of their players on the roster that's currently a free agent, their salary goes up because of that Tyler Johnson extension. $145
What a great
million.
contract. Let's pay a guy that hasn't proven himself and has limited upside, and let's pay him all that money.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
And the worst part about it is they don't even have a pick.
No, they don't have a late first round. They don't have an early second. They don't have a single pick in this draft in one of the deepest drafts in recent memory.
Well,
Great
you know,
job.
I think you can trade Hassan Whiteside to a team like maybe the Bucks, who are looking for that good rim protector at center, which they sort of couldn't find.
I'm going to disagree with you on that one. I don't think anybody wants Hassan White right now.
After the way he played in the playoffs and after the way Pat Riley just trashed him, I don't think anyone would give up a first round pick for him, let alone anything good, really.
I'd like to point out that we officially had HP disagree with Jared, which is a staple of this show at least once an episode.
I'm not the one who got in like a screaming match with Jared.
That's
That's the
true.
MVP though. So.
That's true.
We got to throw that. So.
Christian, what do you think?
Well, you brought up Milwaukee. I could possibly see Hassan Whiteside getting traded to Milwaukee for John Henson plus another player, just because I know Milwaukee's tried to rid themselves of Henson a year or so ago, and that's shortly after they extended Henson. And I know he's got a pretty large contract too. So just to make salaries match, they could probably do a center for a center. Maybe what both guys really need is just a change of scenery. Mm-hmm. But still, over $24 million next season for Whiteside is ridiculous. And like you all said, he didn't even want to be in the playoffs. He was just getting all emotional and everything else when he needed to be focusing on basketball and the team. So that's not, appetizing to any franchise out there in the NBA. So I'm not sure if it would even be possible. Might be on paper, but in reality, I think he's probably stuck, and they're going to have to ride it out for another season or two.
Great. Fantastic.
Man, I think that traded pick hurts him a lot too, because at 16, I believe is where that pick ended up, right? 16. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could get a player like maybe a Gary Trent type player, somebody that could at least give you some help with shooting the ball. Sorry, Lane, I forgot Gary Trent does play for Duke.
No, I'd be cool with Gary Trent, but guess what? That pick isn't ours anymore.
It's not,
It's
unfortunately.
gone. Like at the end of Forrest Gump, where like that feather flies off in the wind. That's our pick. That is exactly what happened. It's gone.
I think that's like the organization ever since LeBron left, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it is. I mean, this team doesn't have a bona fide superstar.
No.
That's it, obviously. But we're paying them like we are.
They have young pieces, though.
Don't even start.
I think if they could ride out these,
I agree, though.
I think if they ride out these
I
contracts, they
disagree.
could. I mean, down the road, I think they could be pretty good. Bam, Josh Richardson, and Justice Winslow, I think could be a pretty good building. That's a pretty good.
I like
Richardson is
Richardson.
a solid piece.
I like Richardson. I like Bam. I like Winslow, but he has the most limited upside out of the three, if you ask me. That's just my opinion. And I'm going to be biased towards Bam, obviously.
And you've got Eric Spoelstra as coach still, which that could be big down the road.
Yeah,
so
I like
once
Spoelstra.
they can get out of the contract hell they're in with Whiteside.
Well, Christian, you may know more of this. What's Spoelstra's feeling in Miami right now? I mean, does he want to stick around? Does he want to go compete for championships? Is he content in Miami?
I don't really think he's looking to move. I've actually talked to Spoelstra a couple of times before in interviews, but I think he's aware of his coaching flaws. He is getting better, but he was really exposed back when LeBron was on the Miami Heat, and he's still trying to fine-tune some things as a coach. So I don't think just trying to leave that franchise right now is best for him. I mean, maybe Toronto would look at him, but I highly doubt it. I just don't think he is that great of a coach, honestly, to be wanting to jump ship and find a better situation, especially since his team already made the playoffs this year. I think he might as well just be content with what he's got and try to keep developing some of his younger guys, such as Jordan Mickey, Josh Richardson, Justice Winslow, etc.
God, there's so many problems with it. If we pay, here's another issue I have. Wayne Ellington was the best shooter on this year's team. If we pay Wayne Ellington the money that
They go to the luxury.
they go to the luxury tax.
I think they're in the luxury tax either way. Actually,
I mean,
They're eventually going to be. But I don't know. I mean, you'd think they try and bring in a shooter, and obviously he's been a bust so far, but the guy can shoot, like Nick Stauskas, who could provide some form of shooting, and they're not going to pay him much at all. But I don't know. One guy I'd like for them to sign, and Christian, no offense, I'd like for them to try and sign Tyreek Evans if that's remotely
They're not
possible.
going to be able to.
They're not going to be able to,
Yeah.
but he would definitely fit that system.
Tyreek should get a nice
And I
contract.
think he would be willing to go there. I think that's one of the teams on his short list that he would actually be willing to go to play for.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, until then, there's still the Heat. They are still trash at this moment. That's okay.
Shut up. You won a championship.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You won
Life
two.
after's been great. God. Technically,
Try
three.
being a Grizzlies fan, I'd gladly take that trophy.
Or a Pacers fan.
Boy, yeah. Oof. It's okay.
I don't have a dog in this fight. So
Well, you had like 24 teams.
I think I got just about all of them except for Jared's teams really. So like the Lakers.
Well,
I got to spend my time like hating on your all's teams. So
and we just about covered all of our teams except one, and that is the Dallas Mavericks, who
I'm excited to
arguably
talk about this one actually.
have Griffin's favorite player or person in the entire league, the IU alum Mark Cuban.
I thought you were going there. With Yogi.
I thought he was going
No.
with Yogi.
I thought he was going to go with Yogi.
No. Well, that might
I'm
not
excited.
bring Yogi back, so I can't
I'm
say
excited to talk about this one though
Yeah.
because if you look at who they can renounce in their rights to in this off season, they could get their cap room down to $65 million. They could be up to $35 million under the cap. So I'm not sure what the interest level is going to be among the top free agents this year, but unless Mark Cuban has had a change of heart over the last few years, he has been all over this try to get a superstar thing for as long as I can remember. And it never works. But
I disagree with that. I don't think they need to go after a superstar.
I don't think
this
they
year.
need to. I'm not saying they need to. I'm saying that if we look at historically what the
Yeah,
Mavericks
yeah.
have tried to do.
Anybody remember the whole DeAndre Jordan saga?
Yeah, Christian was talking about that earlier.
Remember
Yeah.
Dwight trying to get Dwight Howard, trying
Yeah.
to get LeBron. Every time there's been a big free agency, they've been
Yeah.
right in the middle.
The
LeBron,
rumors around the league.
Dallas.
The rumors around the league is that they're going to go after a guy like Boogie or
Julius Randle.
or Julius Randle or Capella or someone like that. When they don't need to, they can get someone at 5 like that. They can get Mo Bamba.
And
They can get
that's
Jared
exactly.
Allen.
I totally agree.
Yeah, and that's who I actually, we're in the process of creating a mock draft right now, and that's actually who I have the Mavericks selecting
Wait a
at
minute.
5.
Do we all have Mo Bamba at 5?
Yeah.
I
That's
think
the
we
first
do.
unanimous pick we have.
Yeah.
I think
Oh
we
my
do.
gosh.
Congratulations, guys. You don't have to complain about each other's picks.
I think the Mavericks are sort of stuck in limbo because you could make the argument to rebuild with them because they have a few young pieces like Dennis Smith Jr. and Yogi who are sort of ready to contribute, but they also have older players, like Dirk Nowitzki, who is the most notable of them all. So I have no more.
Dirk's just there for moral support.
Well, Cuban has said before that he wants that as long as they have Dirk Nowitzki, that they're going to try to win games.
They're terrible though right now. Like we got to be honest with them about that. The Mavericks are awful right now.
Yeah, but it's one of those things. I still feel like they could get 2 or 3 good role players, maybe one superstar like a DeMarcus Cousins possibly, because they have a ton of cap space.
Yeah. HB, how much cap space do they have this offseason?
I could
31, I
I'd
think.
say right now I've got them with my math $85 million this year, and then that will go down to $65 million if they were to renounce everybody. So that'd be about $34 to $35 million in cap space.
Right.
Yeah.
So, if DeMarcus Cousins wants to jump ship in New Orleans, which I don't think he does, but should he want to, I think they could finally get their superstar big men that they've been
Pining for
that they've been wanting for years.
Yeah.
That they thought they found with Nerlens, which I don't think they did. So,
You think?
yeah.
They need to take. They need to go pitch Randall. Randall is from Texas. Obviously, he was one of the 3 guys when UK got with the Harrison twins. That was a big deal.
Yes, HP.
Is Dirk going to the bench now?
No, but Julius Randle is a guy that's only
Julius
23.
Randle logged most of his
Julius
minutes
Randle
with 5.
just averaged his career high of 19.
So we're assuming like they're not taking Mo Bamba in this scenario.
No, I am
then.
assuming they're taking Bamba. Why can't Bamba
Oh,
play
they're gonna let him sit.
Yeah.
Okay, behind him, Randall. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And Randall's a guy come in. Obviously, he just posted 21 points per game, career high PER of 19.9, which obviously there's a lot more room to improve on that. But he's shown that injury that stopped him in his first year isn't something that it should be that big of a liability going forward. It's going to be easy to sell him because he's from that area. But personally, I think if you brought him in to play the 4, obviously, I don't know if Dirk will be too happy about sitting to the bench, but he's getting up there. I mean, restricting his minutes, I think, might become an issue. But then Dennis, can you imagine a young 3, Dennis Smith Jr., Julius Randle, Mohamed Bamba? I like that.
That's scary, but the thing about Randle is he's restricted, and they're going to have to overpay, and I don't really think they're in a position where they need to give a guy a max contract at this point.
But LA's not going to try and take him back.
Well, I know they're not
going to
guys
like
but
I
LeBron.
think if
But
he had a bigger name, maybe. But I don't think Cuban's going to be willing to do that for Randall.
The thing with the Mavericks, I think they need to get kind of they need to kind of go bargain hunting, get younger guys that can develop along with Dennis Smith and whoever they take at the 5th pick. Someone on the wing specifically, someone like Rodney Hood, someone like KCP or Zach LaVine or Marcus Smart, someone along those lines.
See, I'd like it if they brought in an older guard to help Dennis Smith Jr. along. So if they brought in a guy like
Wesley Matthews.
Okay, well, you think Wesley Matthews is going to be there?
I got Yogi.
Okay, well, Yogi's, 25, 26? I'm talking a guy like Jameer Nelson or Jose Calderon
Right.
that has experience and
Right.
can come in and teach Dennis Smith Jr. the ropes.
Well,
he's got the talent, but he's inexperienced.
I also don't want you to think that Julius Randle leaving the Lakers is a foregone conclusion.
Dude, the way they treated him this year is... I almost think it is.
Both sides have actually wanted to stick together. There's been some interest in coming in a reunion. Christian, I'd like to get your opinion on what you think Julius Randle will do. Because personally, I think he's going to stay a Laker. I don't think they'll sign 3 guys. I don't think the Lakers will sign guys like LeBron, Kawhi, PG. I think Paul George is likely, but I still think Julius Randle will be a Laker come next year.
I think Julius is going to kind of just be cautious as soon as free agency starts, just to see what begins to happen. I don't think he wants to give up a starting role. I don't think he wants to be delegated to the bench at all. So if somebody like Carmelo would come onto the team and they're thinking, oh, we're going to play Melo, say 30 minutes a game at the power forward position, I think that's where Randall says, okay, I'm out of here. I'm taking the biggest offer, whether it's Dallas or somewhere else, as long as they're offering a starting position too. But I think Dallas would actually be a good landing spot for Julius Randle, especially with Harrison Barnes there. I think Harrison Barnes is actually best suited as a small forward rather than power forward, though he did play quite a few power forward minutes with the Warriors during their championship run a couple of years ago. But I think that would be a good fit, and it would be a step in the right direction for Mark Cuban and his club. I'm just not sure how fast they would actually become a playoff team. Even if you add Randall to go with Barnes and Dennis Smith Jr., still have Dirk maybe in a reserve role, I don't think that team makes the playoffs. I think it's going to take some time, and that's one thing that Mark Cuban really has to know. It's going to take time, and that's he's never really taken time into consideration in the past. He just essentially wants to throw money out there, just try to build a championship team overnight, and he needs to do more like what he did in 2011 with that Mavericks team. Just get some seasoned veterans, put them together, let them mesh for a couple seasons, and then all of a sudden, man, we just made it to the NBA Finals. Of course, they got lucky. They beat LeBron and the Miami Heat, and it's really the same recipe that they need to follow here in the future. If they want to win another championship, not just constantly try to go after the biggest free agents, because like every other time, the Mavericks get turned down for whatever reason. So they just need to go back, look at history, and follow that same path. I don't know why they try to defer from it.
Do not disagree with that at all. So to wrap up our Mavericks segment, is everybody in agreement that Mo Bamba is the pick here?
Oh, absolutely.
Whoever's available between Bamba. They're gonna have a pick. They're gonna have a pick. One of the three is gonna be available between Bagley, Bamba, and Jaren Jackson. So whoever's
I
available.
think so
amongst
too.
those
I think
three.
that ends up being Mo Bamba. Personally,
I think you go Bamba.
Yeah.
Jared, you got
Bamba's
Mo Bamba?
defensive potential is insane. It's the big men they've been waiting for, the big men that thought they found with Nerlens.
Oh, you just gotta pour salt into that one.
I think he'd be. I think it would be a joy to watch him grow with Dennis Smith Jr.
I do too. That'd be an awesome combination.
Griff, Mo Bamba,
Obama.
Mo Bamba, indeed.
What about you, Christian? What do you think?
I agree with you all, especially if you look back all these seasons with the Mavericks. They don't really look for an all-star center. They just need somebody that's a solid contributor. Whether they're a championship team or a scrub team, that's all they ever want at that center position. Really, if they do go after Randall, and they do have that in the works in their plans, there's really no reason to go after any other position because they got point guard solved. They've got shooting guard solved. They've got Harrison Barnes at small forward. Just pick up a solid vet in free agency at power forward. That only leaves the center position, so why not start young and begin developing him?
Absolutely.
I agree 100%. Well, I think that's going to do it just about for episode number 12. Is that right?
Yeah, episode 12.
Are you
I'm
sure
glad I
you
can
have no
count.
Donovan Mitchell questions?
You know, I would throw some Donovan Mitchell in there, but maybe for another day, I suppose. There's been plenty of Donovan Mitchell talk on this show as is. So, first of all, I want to say thanks a lot to Christian for coming in to help us out today because
No problem, guys. It's been fun.
Appreciate it.
yeah,
very
we
much.
had a great time with it. So hopefully everybody enjoys the show with
With this
interviewing
going
that,
on. Yeah.
with a fifth man because I wouldn't surprise Jared actually got to show up today. For a second, I thought we were gonna have Christian fill in for Jared again.
Well, and you know, Christian, I think I speak for all of us when I say that we'd love to have you back in the future if the opportunity ever presents itself again. And we all really appreciate you coming on and joining us on this episode, and I hope that everyone enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been great.
Absolutely. So everybody, just remember to go ahead and like our videos, subscribe, and make sure you keep listening in the future. Hope everybody has a good Memorial Day weekend. We'll be dropping on Monday. So Landon,
Stay neutral, and we will see you all later.